Welcome, everybody, to Black and Gold Weekly, a weekly Boston Bruins show here on YouTube, brought to you in partnership with Black and Gold Productions. I am your host, John. This is episode 66 of the show, and the first round of the playoffs getting close to an end here. Bruins in a tight series with the Carolina Hurricanes, and we're going to be talking all about this first round matchup today. I am joined, per usual, by my co-host, Danny. Danny, thanks for coming on the show. Great to have you here and ready to talk some Bruins hockey.
I am absolutely ready to talk some Bruins hockey. What a roller coaster week it's been, really. And
big time.
Quite honestly, that's a theme from the entire Bruins season, and it hasn't changed. So I am ready.
All right, well, this is going to be a fun one here as we are in the meat of round one of the playoffs. But before we get started, I do want to give a big thank you to Mark Allred and the entire team at Black and Gold Productions. This show would not be happening without them. So obviously, huge thank you for all of their support. Also want to draw your attention down to the description of the video where there are 3 links, one for Boston Bruins apparel, one for NHL apparel from any of the 32 teams, and another one for NCAA college apparel. And if you are in the market for any of those things, it would be greatly appreciated if you could check out those links. Huge variety of products, great selection, all team branded. And really does support BNG and help out the show a lot. So with that, Danny, I guess we got to get into it. Last week when we recorded, only game 1 of this series had been played. Obviously, the Bruins lost game number 1. But boy, has a lot happened since then between, games 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's been a pretty wild series, very back and forth. And where we sit right now, Carolina has a 3-2 lead heading into Game 6 in Boston Thursday night. So just kind of overall, what's your thoughts on this series been, up until, now through game number 5?
Can I say I don't know? Because with this Bruins team, I truly do not know. They looked great on Friday and Sunday. Then they pulled out an absolute stinker on Tuesday. On the road, struggling on the road, but that doesn't negate, I don't think, what they did in the first 2 games, and we'll get into it. I just really don't know with this team. They are so confusing. They get my hopes up, and then they let me down. It's like never getting that text back,
Yeah.
I hope for the best, but inevitably we're stuck in a very difficult position. Not saying the series is over, but I've just been through this, and we've all been through this so many times with the Bruins. They get your hopes up, and then inevitably it just doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah, I think you mentioned earlier roller coaster week,
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it's been like for me. I mean, you've got, games 1 and 2 down in Carolina and did not go well. Team looked awful. It almost felt like that series was over already after the first 2 games. But then Boston gets back on home ice. They come storming back. They win 2 big games at home, 2 games that they needed to win. They tie the series back up at 2. And then, you go into Carolina again for game 5. And as a Bruins fan, you were hoping that it would be different than the first 2 games. That you were hoping that they would be able to carry some momentum from games 3 and 4 and be able to, play well in Carolina. And then it's junk. I mean, it's back to games 1 and 2 for that 5th game in Carolina, and they lose 5-1. It's like, it's so frustrating, and you're just hoping for more and expecting more from this team, and they really got your hopes up with how they played in games 3 and 4, and then it feels deflating and discouraging after watching game 5, and now they're headed back home for a must-win game 6 on home ice.
The Bruins team that plays at home and the Bruins team that goes and plays on the road, or at least attempts to play in this series, looks like 2 completely different teams.
Yep.
It's almost incredible to see how much they struggle on the road, and that is a major problem in the playoffs. You have to win on the road. Yes, I know that Carolina is a tough environment, and it's probably not easy to play in, but it's not going to get any easier if you hypothetically advance from here on out. So the Bruins have to win on the road. I'm happy they've been able to take care of business at home so far, but those road troubles could be the reason that they lose the series potentially.
Yeah,
Potentially.
and I mean, they literally have to win a game on the road. You know, it's always said that a
Yeah.
team's never in trouble until they lose on home ice. Well, that's the case when you're the higher seed. But when you're the lower seed, you don't get 4 home games. You get 3, and the other team gets 4. And to win the series, if you're a lower seed, you have to win at least 1 on the road. And
Hmm.
Boston hasn't really shown any ability to do that. And they don't make me believe that they can. So if this game, if let's say it goes back to Boston for 6 and they win at home again, like which has been the trend this series, they're going back to Carolina for game number 7. Boston has not shown me anything in Carolina that makes me believe that they could win a game 7 in Carolina. I mean,
No.
maybe they can finally pull out a good performance eventually on the road, but nothing that I've seen so far makes me hopeful about a game 7 in Carolina.
And it's not just, the forwards or the defense, or it's everybody
Oh,
that
it's
can't seem
awful
to play well on
across
the
the
road.
board.
It's awful across the board, and you know, Bruce Cassidy makes lineup changes, and those don't work. The entire team is awful on the road, and
Yeah.
it's very, very frustrating to watch because we know what this Bruins team is capable of when they're playing well, and they were playing well on Friday and Sunday. So I
hmm
don't know what happened in between Sunday and Tuesday or why they can't perform on the road, but it is so darn frustrating.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, and it's really been, this series. It's not like the Bruins were a bad road team in the regular season. Like, it's not like this has been an issue all year long where you're like, well, this team can't win on the road. That hasn't been the case until this series. And I think, one of the biggest things is the matchup game, the line matching that Carolina is able to do with the last change.
Hmm.
Jordan Stahl and his line with Jesper Fast and Nino Niederreiter have completely shut down the Bergeron line for the Bruins in Carolina, where they're matched up because Carolina gets the last change. They get to decide who plays against who, and they're putting that Stahl line out there against the Bergeron line, and it's completely shutting them down. And
Yeah.
in Boston, the Bruins are able to get Bergeron and Marchand away from the Stahl line, and they're having a heck of a lot more success. And you're seeing, look at how many points that line put up in the games in Boston. And then they go
Yeah.
out to Carolina and absolutely nothing. This has been a clinic of being a shutdown center from Jordan Stahl and what that line has been able to do in these playoffs against the Bruins, particularly shutting down that Bergeron line in the games in Carolina. And that matchup and the Bruins' inability to get away from that matchup on the road or to win that matchup is something that may end up costing them this entire series.
And it's crazy to think. I feel like Jordan Stahl has been in the league for forever.
It's
He's
been a long
33
time
years.
now.
Yeah, it has. I remember writing like about articles about when he was drafted in middle school, and
hmm
now he's helping the Carolina Hurricanes kind of bridge the gap between youth and veteran playmaking. And it's kind of interesting when you look at the depth that this Carolina Hurricanes team has. I know it's been a huge topic throughout the entire series, but when you're able to mix and match and you do so in a way with players that can take away the Bruins' top playmakers,
hmm
that is a huge, huge, you know, advantage for you. And right now, the Bruins have a solid base of playmakers, but I don't think they have the depth to take away Carolina's playmakers on top of, what they're already doing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, what Boston struggled to get some production out of certain lines and certain guys, and Carolina's getting more production from different places throughout their lineup and more of a, more of an entire team producing rather than trying to rely on a few players. And honestly, I think Carolina has more talent on their roster and in their forward group than the
They
Bruins
do.
do.
They do.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think, Boston has, I don't know, we've seen good defensive performances, but not good offensive. And then the guy, I don't know. Boston isn't getting the total package right now from everybody, to say the least. And I think Carolina is getting more guys that, they're able to play really well defensively. They're able to put up points. They're getting obviously great goaltending from Antti Ranta, who, again, early in game 5, made some spectacular saves. It could have easily been a 2-3 nothing lead for the Bruins, but Ranta made these huge stops. Bruins don't score. Carolina eventually goes back the other way, gets a goal, and the game completely shifts and changes. And that's where having a goaltender that can make those kinds of saves and get those timely saves in a big spot
Mm.
is really, really important. And Carolina is getting that from Ranta, at least in the home games this series.
And you mentioned how the Bruins can't seem to get everything kind of clicking all at once. When you look at the defensive performance that the Bruins put together on Sunday
Mm-hmm.
without Charlie McAvoy,
Yep.
I thought they did an excellent job. I really thought like that gave me hope for the team heading to Carolina on Tuesday. I really thought that they did an excellent job. Swayman played great, and everything seemed to be clicking. They got scoring. They got 5 points from Marchand for I think his first ever 5
Yep.
point playoff game.
Yep. It
And
was.
so, you know, that to me is frustrating. They were able to do really well on Sunday without McAvoy on home ice, but they just weren't able to repeat that same performance in Carolina on Tuesday. And like you said, they can't seem to get everything clicking all at once throughout the entire series, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of want to take this more, we've talked about kind of the series as a whole to this point, but looking at
Mm.
this from more of a game by game perspective here. Obviously, we talked about game 1 last week's show, but starting with game 2, I remember last week we kind of went into it. We talked about game 2 and how we really wanted to see a bounce back performance from the Bruins after really not playing well in game number 1. And, we didn't get it. we didn't get it.
No.
Game 2 was another one that was not very good. Now, the Bruins did outshoot the Hurricanes and outhit the Hurricanes.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, it was still, 5-2 win for Carolina, taking care of business again on home ice. Carolina scores first, as they have in every single game this series. They actually got the first 3 goals in game number 2 before Bergeron finally answered with a power play goal for the Bruins. But wasn't long after, Nino Niederreiter scored for Carolina, made it 4-1. Game felt kind of over at that point.
Mm.
Bruins made it 4-2 with another Bergeron goal in the third. But then Niederreiter put home one in the empty net at the end of the game, and that was it. 5-2, Carolina wins game 2. And once again, the Bruins just don't have nearly enough and don't look good on the road.
They don't look good on the road. And I remember talking on the show last week about how if Linus Ullmark struggled in game 2, then it might have been worth it to give Swayman a look.
Yep.
And, I'm not going to blame Wednesday's game all on him. Like, the whole team struggled, but he certainly didn't do anything to help his case. So, I
Yep.
mean, it was just another frustrating game. And at that point, like we kind of talked, if they lose game 2, then the series is probably over. I thought they were honestly dead in the water
Yeah.
after after Wednesday, if we're being honest here.
Yep. No, I did too. I was very down after game number 2. I think, the series did almost feel over at that point, even though they hadn't even played a home game yet. But just the way that Carolina it was not just that they were winning the games, but like they were easily winning the games. Like they were
Yeah.
crushing the Bruins. I think that's what made it feel so bad. Was like it'd be one thing if Carolina like won in overtime and it was a really close back and forth game that went down to the end or whatever, like, or if it was like a 1-goal game in the third period, like I think our feelings would have been different. But the fact that Carolina was not only winning but really dominant in a lot of these games, or in the first 2 games, is really what made it feel like, holy cow, like the Bruins look like they're done here.
Mm.
This was another game. The Halla line was terrible. Halla was -2, Hall was -3. Pastrnak -2, DeBrusque -1. I mean, those guys were not good in this game, and they were out there for a lot of goals against. And it was one of those really frustrating ones. Ullmark was not great in goal. We said last week that if he had another bad game where he gave up, 4+ goals in game number 2, that it was time to switch to Swayman. And Ullmark gave up 4 goals again here in this one. Obviously, the last one was an empty netter, so it doesn't count against him. But only an .879 save percentage for Ullmark. And game 2 is just another one that I watched and went, well, this stinks. And kind of didn't want to watch anymore. So that brings us to game 3, headed back to Boston. And obviously at that point it became a must-win game for the Boston Bruins because they could not afford to go down 3-0 in this series. Series would have been over, dead in the water at that point. And they did make the switch to Jeremy Swayman. And back on home ice, things really turned around for the Bruins. And this was a huge bounce-back performance in game number 3 that I wanted to see in game number 2. We had to wait an extra couple days for it.
We did, and I thought Swayman looked great. To me, coming into the game, it was a test of a couple of things for Jeremy Swayman. 1, how is he going to do in his first playoff start?
Yep.
2, can he handle it? And actually 3, does he have the capabilities to not only start this game, but maybe if he plays well, can he play another game? Do we have that goaltending depth that we said we were missing coming into the playoffs? And, Friday he had a great game. I thought he looked really composed in net. He was able to make a bunch of key saves. He saved 27 shots overall.
Mm-hmm.
25 shots overall. He faced 27.
Yep.
And I thought the Bruins did a good job of playing defense in front of him. They were able to get pucks offensively to the net. They didn't just shoot from, the top of the blue line.
Yeah.
They actually went into the slot and got good quality shots. And, I thought this was a great game overall. And you could see once Swayman made the first couple of saves, he really kind of started to get into a groove, started to relax. He saw the puck really well, and it was overall a really good effort.
Yeah, this was a great game for the Bruins and one that they desperately needed. The only blemish really was that Carolina scored first again. About halfway through the first period, Vincent Trocheck scored for the Canes and put them up 1-0. But face-offs, much better for the Bruins here in Game 3 than they were in the first 2 games. They won 57% of the draws. And again, I think that matchup game is absolutely huge in the fact that the Bruins were able to get the Bergeron line away from the Stahl line with the last change on home ice, completely changed faceoffs and completely changed the offensive production that the Bergeron line was able to get. I mean, Jordan Stahl still went 59% in the faceoff dot in this game for Carolina, but he was the only one. I mean, everybody else other than Kotkaniemi, who went 55%, Trocheck and Aho were both below 40% in the faceoff dot. They were awful. Whereas Bergeron, who was really, really struggling against Jordan Stahl, went up to 65% in the faceoff dot away from Jordan Stahl. With the matchup change. So being on home ice and being able to get those lines facing off against who you want them to drastically change things here for the Bruins. And their special teams also had a monster game in game number 3. Carolina went 0 for 5 on the power play, so the Bruins killed off every penalty. And Charlie Coyle got the first Bruins goal short-handed late in the first period, which honestly, I think without that goal, this game goes very, very differently. If Carolina takes a lead into the first intermission, I think this game ends up going very differently. That short-handed goal by Coyle really changed the momentum of the game and really made the Bruins start to have that jump in their step and that belief factor that they're still in this. And that was a huge shorty for Charlie Coyle. And then the Bruins got 2 more goals on the power play as the game went along, 1 in the second and 1 in the third. So special teams was massive for the Bruins in this one.
Well, we said at the outset that special teams is going to make or break the series. We said that and goaltending. And, special teams was the downfall for the Hurricanes on Friday.
Yep.
And it really aided the Bruins in Friday's game as well. It was great to see what has been a struggling power play, get some goals, get some shots, and just seeing the puck hit the back of the net must have felt great for that power play unit
Yeah.
because, you know, even before the playoffs, we talked about it. They were struggling towards the end of the regular season, and we were
Hmm.
hoping to see them kind of, what's the word? Get a spark.
Yep.
And they were able to do that on Friday, and so I thought it was a really overall, a really complete game from the Bruins.
Oh, 100%. And then obviously Swayman came in net for game
Mm.
3 and 926 save percentage, stopped 25 out of 27. Swayman was very strong in goal. And again, I think that having that level of goaltending is a difference maker. I mean, when your goalie only gives up 2 rather than giving up 4, I mean, think about I'd love to see like statistically what your chances of winning are when your goalie gives up 2 versus when your goalie gives up 4, because it must be a huge difference, and the winning percentage must absolutely skyrocket when a goaltender only gives up 2 goals in a game. And that's what Swayman was able to do for the most part. He made some big stops. He shut
Mm.
down Carolina, held them to just a couple of goals, and the Bruins scored a lot of special teams goals that ended up giving them the win here. And it was a 4-2 victory for the Bruins in a must-win game that they desperately needed.
I thought he saw the puck really well. I thought he was able to make great reads. He didn't let up too many rebounds. He was able to, really kind of, no pun intended, calm the storm that was the Hurricanes' offense. And I thought he did really well. And he showed me something. And you know, and we'll get into this when we get into the next game very shortly here. But overall, I think this weekend for him really kind of showed me something and made me excited about his future.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, after obviously now it's a 2-1 series, Bruins are back in it, but they're facing another huge home game in game number 4 on Sunday, Mother's Day, afternoon game. Again, Bruins cannot really afford to go down 3-1, so this is not technically a must-win, but realistically another must-win for the Bruins. Really need to come out and try and tie this series up. And Boston was able to do that with another huge win and another one where special teams played a big role. Bruins end up getting 9 power plays in this game, which is pretty crazy. You don't see that many in the playoffs very often, but they go 2 for 9 on the power play, which isn't, a massive, but still getting 2 goals
Yep. Yep.
on the power play is huge. Once again, the penalty kill was perfect. Carolina went 0 for 5 on their power plays. Canes did get back going in the faceoff dot in this 4th game, though. They won 54% of the draws. Bruins only 46.
Mm.
But big bounce back game for Sebastian Aho in the faceoff dot, 62% in game 4, whereas in game 3 he was only 30%. And Jordan Stahl actually went down to just 50% in the faceoff dot for game number 4. Bergeron for the Bruins stayed up high at 70% in the faceoff dot, but nobody else for the Bruins was even close, even
Mm.
50%. Holla was at 44, Coyle at 33, Nosek at 25, Lazar at 14. He was bad in the dot. I mean, this was again where these faceoffs are starting to favor Carolina again, and that means more puck possession to Carolina. But at the end of the day in this one, I mean, the Bruins with another really strong performance. And I think the most important thing out of it all was that Charlie McAvoy missed this game, was in COVID protocol for one game and ended up not being able to play in this one. So the Bruins were down Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy for this game, their top 2 defensemen, and were still able to come away with a win. And that was huge.
That was huge, and I thought Connor Clifton played well. I thought, that the Bruins did a good job of limiting the Canes' rush chances because
Mm-hmm.
the rush is a huge part of what the Carolina Hurricanes do, and for good reason. They can beat you. They can beat you on the rush with their speed.
Yeah.
And you know, Marchand came to play, 5 points, absolutely crazy day for
Oh
Marchand.
yeah.
Um, you know, and I thought the Bruins did another solid job. This was where I was, starting to think, okay, the Bruins have turned this around. The days of game one and game two where they struggled and they looked kind of bad, to be frank, are
Yep.
gone, and we're turning the page here. And at least for Sunday, I thought the Bruins did really well in all facets of the game. And like you said, the most impressive thing to me was that the defense did it without Charlie McAvoy.
Yeah, I mean, this was a gutsy win for the Bruins that they really needed, and they played great. And, Swayman had another strong game in goal. They got really good production from their top guys offensively. Obviously, you mentioned Marchand and his 5-point night. Bergeron had 3 points. DeBrusk had 2. Pastrnak had 2. Yeah, I mean, it was a massive, massive game. And
We,
one again that the Bruins desperately needed, and they come away with a 5-2 win. It was crazy to me how different the Bruins looked in games 3 and 4 at home than just the overall way that they played and how they looked in games 1 and 2 in Carolina. And just like it didn't even look like the same team.
yeah, yep. And I finally got to see. I had always heard, but I finally got to see why Tony DeAngelo has an interesting reputation in the NHL. I will say that.
Yeah, he is not
But
liked.
he is not liked. I mean, I do like that style of play, but like Marchand, he does cost his team sometimes, and he did
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday.
Yeah.
Um, Granted, I'm not saying that D'Angelo is anywhere near Marchand's skill level, but that same type of agitator play style.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kind of truthfully miss that when those guys used to be more prevalent in hockey, but
Yep.
it's good to have a series villain. I always like series villains in the playoffs. It makes things even more interesting. A nice little
Big time.
subplot. Yeah,
Yeah, big time. You got to have villains. You can't have heroes without villains. There's got to be someone on the other end of the spectrum. So,
that is true.
100%. He's an agitator for sure, and certainly has gotten under people's skin, but also you can get under his skin, as we've seen with Marchand,
Hmm.
who sometimes loses it a little bit. D'Angelo certainly lost it in Game 4, but game number 5, big game for him and a big game for the Hurricanes as a whole. So after Game 4, the series is obviously tied back up 2-2. Bruins are heading back to Carolina. Canes will get back on home ice. Their lead has evaporated now that they had in the series. And, Game 5s in tied series end up usually being really, really big ones. Because that 3-2 lead, you push the other team to that brink of elimination, all of a sudden they have 2 must-win games where you only need to win one more. And it's really a series-changing game, whoever can take game number 5. And honestly, heading into this game, after the way that the Bruins had played on home ice, I had high hopes. I was really expecting them to be able to carry some of that momentum back to Carolina, at least play a good game. I was not
Yeah,
expecting it to go back to like how it was in game 1 and 2. Thought the Bruins had finally shown up in the series, and we're going to be able to at least play a really solid game, whichever way it went, at least keep it really close in game number 5. But unfortunately, that once again wasn't the case. And I mean, they lose this one 5-1. And it was almost like back to game 1 and 2 for game 5.
to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting a win on Tuesday just because of how tough Carolina is at home and how loud the building gets.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't expecting, 4-1. I was expecting like 4-3 or
Yep.
3-2, like
Yeah.
something, because I thought that effort that they showed on Friday and Sunday could translate over into Tuesday, because it looked, and this has been the story for the whole season, when the Bruins are on and they're firing on all cylinders, and I know you said this a lot too, they look like they could be Stanley Cup champions. But when they're off,
Mm-hmm.
they look like they can't beat a Pee-wee team.
Yeah.
And we saw that on Tuesday, and I really thought they would be able to translate that success on Sunday into, at least a solid effort on Tuesday. But boy, that was not the case whatsoever.
No. And Bruins actually won the faceoff battle in this game, 54% to 46 in the faceoff dot, but they got outshot. Carolina outshot them 38 to 34. And I think one of the biggest things, again, was the special teams battle. We
Mhm.
saw the Bruins really win the special teams battle in games 3 and 4 on home ice. They very much lost the special teams battle in this one. 0 for 3 on the power play,
Mm.
and then they allow Carolina to go 2 for 5. So Bruins do nothing with their power play chances, and Carolina scores on 2 of theirs. And again, that ends up being a huge difference as the Canes win 5-1. And D'Angelo, after all the talk after Game 4 and everything that happened with him, D'Angelo scores a goal and has 2 assists. A 3-point night for him on D for Carolina in game number 5. Talk about showing up to a game that you really need to show up to. And he helped the Canes a ton. Jarvis had an awesome game. Seth Jarvis had a couple goals for Carolina.
I really like him, Seth
I
Jarvis. I
love
really
Seth
like
Jarvis.
him.
He's a
Yeah,
great young player. Sebastian Aho
I like him too. Actually,
some let's see, two assists for Sebastian Aho. Carolina just comes back with the home ice performance that they were hoping for, and Boston had no answer.
they had no answer whatsoever, and it seems like clockwork with this Bruins team. When things go right, a lot go right, but when things go wrong, it seems like everything goes wrong.
Yep.
There's no silver lining. The power play was a mess last night, Tuesday night. The goaltending wasn't great. It just reeked of a bad Bruins game, and that's
Yep.
exactly what it was.
Yeah, so here we are now. Through 5 games, the Bruins find themselves down in the series 3-2. If you told me back at the end of game 2 that it was going to be a 3-2 series, I'd actually probably be pretty happy about that, because after game 2, I thought the Bruins were done, and they obviously were able to storm back in games 3 and 4 and take care of business on home ice. They still haven't been able to win on the road, and to have any chance to win this series, they have to win at least one game on the road. So we'll see what happens here coming up in game 6 and potentially game 7 if it makes it that far. But I don't know. This has been a very back and forth series. There's been a lot of trends in this series. I think the biggest one is obviously the home team has won every single game so far. The other one is that Carolina has scored first in every single game so far, even the ones that the Bruins won. The Canes got on the board first in. So, I don't know. Heading into game 6, man, how are you feeling? What are you thinking? And do you think the Bruins can win another game at home and force it to 7?
I think they're going to win tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think they're going to lose in game 7.
I
I hope
honestly,
that's not the case. I hope that I really like. I know we we make losing predictions sometimes, and people are probably like, but I don't like being homers. I like to keep it real. That's how I see it. Go ahead,
yeah.
John. Just had to get that out of the way.
No, I agree with you, man. I agree with you. I see the same thing. I think Game 6 back in Boston on Thursday night, I think the Bruins can win that game, absolutely, based on how they've played at home and the great games in 3 and 4 that they had. I can see the Bruins winning Game 6, absolutely. But I have seen nothing to this point in the series that makes me believe they can win in Carolina. Like, just based on the 3 games that have played in Carolina already, again, it'd be one thing if the games were close. If they got it to overtime and they lost a 1-goal game in OT or something, I'd be thinking differently. But the fact that Carolina has not only won all the games in Carolina, but handily won the games in Carolina, I haven't seen it. I don't see what there is to make me think that Boston can go into Carolina and win.
Would it be fair to say that because of what happened in the regular season and because of what's happened in all games played in Carolina so far, that the 2 games in Boston were an anomaly? Would it be fair to say that?
Yeah, it certainly seems like that because they lost every game to Carolina in the regular season. They've lost every game to Carolina in Carolina in the playoffs. They all they have to show for is the 2 home wins in 3 and 4. And
Like
those
there's
games were very different than any of the other games against Carolina this year.
there's no doubt that the Bruins played well in those games. I'm not trying to
Well, they looked
discredit their effort.
that's the only
Yeah.
games against Carolina this year that the Bruins have even looked good.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I think it's yes, they played well, but I do think it's an anomaly of sorts, and that's also frustrating because if they had come out and put up 3 goals in Carolina last night or Tuesday night, um, then I would say that this was a Bruins team that was ready to compete with the Hurricanes. But those 2 games in Boston do truly look like an anomaly, and it's frustrating.
Oh, those 2 games stand out as very different than any other games against the Hurricanes this year. Um, they're the only 2 games where Boston's really looked good. And the games that the Bruins have lost, again, it's not like it was a 1-goal game going down
They've
to the
looked bad.
wire. Like, they've looked bad. Like,
Yeah.
they haven't even been in the game. And it's just, I think that's the most frustrating thing about it. And that's what really ticked me off about Game 5 on Tuesday, is that after the 2 wins at home, I thought the Bruins would be able to at least look good in Game 5 on the road. Even if they didn't win it, I thought they would at least be able to make it really close and hang with the Hurricanes and keep it a
Yeah.
1-goal game. And they couldn't even do that. They went right back to how it looked in Games 1 and 2.
Maybe a first round exit will allow the Bruins to begin to work on changes that need to be made in the offseason. I mean, maybe this is what the Bruins need in order for management to kind of, look in the mirror and see what can be done, what needs to be done. I mean, because you look at this current roster and they do have the talent to make it to the cup, and we've seen it. We've seen it, happen where they made it to the cup and lost and gone deep and stuff. But even with those deep playoff runs, there's always been stuff that needs to be addressed that hasn't been addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe a first round exit will push those issues to the forefront. Most notably, I think, what to do with Bergeron and to kind of, reevaluate the future of this team, because I do think, they need to start planning for the future.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I agree with that, too. I mean, this is a team that has got to have some sort of plan for going forward. Because it seems like, they've consistently been a playoff team, but they can, they haven't been able to finish it off in the last, few runs, since Cassidy's taken over. They've made it, they went to the finals in 19. That was as close as they got, but they got to start looking ahead and starting to plan for the future here and starting to make some decisions on what they're going to do, because I feel like, it looks like the window with the current team as it is closed. Like, I don't think, I don't think you're going to come back next year and expect anything to be drastically different than it was this year. They look like a team that can make it to the playoffs, first couple rounds maybe, first round, second round if they're, get a favorable matchup, and then that's it. Like, they're not going beyond that. And I don't know exactly what. There's no easy, just simple move to make that's going to all of a sudden put this team up into the, going to the finals, Colorado Avalanche type territory. But I feel like, you've got to start thinking about this offseason and what direction you're going to try and go with this team, because they've got a lot of veterans there, and it seems like the window is getting slammed shut on a lot of these veteran guys.
The window is getting slammed shut, and I don't trust this current group to properly evaluate talent and have, a plan in place for the future. Sure, they'll have a plan in place, but will it be effective? I don't know if I trust this current group to lead the Bruins into, rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. I don't know about you, but I don't know if I trust this group.
Yeah, I think I don't think they're gonna go into a full rebuild.
No.
If they were, I would definitely want changes made management wise. But I don't think they're going to go into a full rebuild because they're still a playoff team. They may
Yeah.
not be a cup team, but they're still a playoff team. And teams that are at that point don't just give up and be like, all right, well, we're starting from scratch. Like, I think, you're going to have to see, you're going to see a team that still is trying to maintain that playoff level. I just don't see them at the cup level, and I don't think there's an easy fix that is all of a sudden just going to push them to cup level. So
And
I
when I
think
say
they're in
go
one
ahead.
of those spots right now where they're kind of stuck where they are.
When I say rebuild, I don't mean like blowing up the team. I mean like, getting continuing to develop prospects, drafting, having some players available at the ready. We talked about a guy like Fabian Lysell who could come in next season potentially
Mm-hmm.
and play for Boston. Like that's what I mean when I say rebuild. I don't mean blowing up the team because I do think there's a lot of solid pieces there, but it's about, you know, beyond the parent club. It's about developing talent, getting young talent in, and having a solid plan, and quite frankly, preparing for life without, Bergeron and Marchand.
Yeah, and I mean a big part of that is drafting well. Um, Bruins don't exactly have a lot of draft picks in this year's draft. I mean, they don't have a first rounder. They got one in the second. They have Calgary's third round pick. Calgary may end up going deeper than the Bruins. They're in a tight series with Dallas right now, but if Calgary goes deeper in the playoffs than the Bruins, then that pick is going to actually end up being later than what the Bruins' third round pick would have been. They got a fourth. They don't have a fifth. They've got a sixth, and then they've got 2 sevens. So they don't have a first round pick this year. So it's not like they can go out and get another Fabian Lysell type talent
Yeah.
because they don't have a first round pick. They don't have a second round pick in 2023 or 2024. So this is a team that needs some of these draft picks to hit, and they don't exactly have a high shooting percentage on draft picks in
Mm.
recent years. And they also don't have a whole lot of draft picks coming up in these next few drafts. So, I don't know. This is a tough spot to be in, I think, if you're Boston, where I think they're just kind of gonna, stay fumbling around as a playoff team close to a wild card spot that will win, will make the playoffs, maybe win a round if they're lucky, but not really be able to do anything more than that.
It's a very difficult spot to be in, and it's frustrating. But I do think you're right. I mean, I think the Bruins, like I said, they have a lot of good young pieces in terms of what's on the roster right now. When you look at a guy, like DeBrusque, yes, he had his moments of drought this season. We talked about that, week stretch when it seemed like he didn't have any points, or 2 week stretch, whatever it was. But to me, like, he showed me something because he was a, you know, pretty solid contributor this year, more so than in other years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a goalie like Swayman, who's your goalie for the future, and he's been able to come in, especially in this playoff series, and show that kind of he is capable of taking the reins in tough spots, because that was a big question mark heading into the season. So I do think there are pieces, but the life without Bergeron and Marchand is just, it's at the forefront of my mind because I can see it coming.
Yep.
Whether or not Bergeron comes back this year, because I believe his contract is up this
Yeah,
summer,
he's a
correct?
free agent this summer.
Yeah. So, I mean, in my personal opinion, I don't see him not coming back just because he's been here his whole career and
Mm-hmm.
because of his age. I see him signing a short-term deal, but they have to start thinking about life after these guys, and we still got a whole, hopefully, you know, deep playoff run, but it's something you really should think about.
Yeah, they're in a lot of trouble when Bergeron's gone. I can tell you that because
They are.
there's nothing here. There's nobody here right now, center wise, that can really fill that role. I mean, they don't have anything close to a number one center outside of Bergeron. So that's gonna be when if he doesn't come back, that's gonna be a massive hole that they'll have to fill.
Do you think they would promote? I don't know if he's even ready, or if he's still at Michigan, to be honest with you, but John Beecher. I think they signed him to a
He's been
entry
down
level
in
deal.
Providence.
Yeah,
He is not NHL
yeah.
ready.
No, I didn't think so.
He is
I
not
mean,
NHL ready.
they just signed him to a an
Yeah.
entry level deal. So,
Yeah, I saw him
oof.
in Providence a couple games at the end of the season. Yeah, he's gonna be. I would expect at least a full year from him in Providence next year. He is not NHL ready.
Do you think he has a chance to be decent?
I see him as like another third liner. I think he's like a Trent Frederick. He's like a third line guy. I don't see him. I don't know. I not from what I've seen so far do I see a top 6 guy there. Not
Yeah.
at the NHL level.
And that was our first round pick in what, 2018?
Yeah, I forget off the top of my head. 2018, 2019, something like that.
Yeah.
Hang on, I can look it up quick, but let's see. 2019, 30th overall.
Mm.
I mean, he's more of a defensive-minded player. And I don't know, from what I just saw him a little bit in Providence, and he's certainly not NHL ready right now. And I see him more as like a third line guy. I don't think he's ever going to have the offensive production to be a top 6 center. I just don't see it right now. Not from what I've seen from him so far. I don't think they have anybody down the middle that's going to be a top 6 player.
Which makes me wonder what they're going to do when that time comes.
They're going to go and spend a bunch of money in free agency is what they're going to do.
Well, yeah, but are they going to be good free agent signings, or are they going to be
that's the question.
like a David Beckus?
Yeah, that's the problem
position.
right
Yeah.
there. And the other issue is that, it does, you can go out and sign free agents or make a trade all you want. It doesn't look very good that you can't develop your own top 6 talent offensively.
Especially when you look at the teams that are probably going to circle you in the playoffs just this year alone. You got Florida, Carolina. I mean, the series isn't done yet. But when you look at what Carolina's been able to do, you talk about how they're able to, figure out matchups with the Bruins and take away, Marchand and Bergeron, just with their young players alone. They have the young players to do that, and the Bruins don't. So, I don't know.
We'll have to see. I don't know. There's the future is getting choppier, like choppy ocean water out here with the future with this team, because I don't know how much longer they're going to be able to hang on with, being this playoff team without having at least a few years to try and refill some young talent into that organization. Have a couple years maybe where you miss the playoffs and get lottery picks and get some early, some at least top half first round talent, because Boston hasn't had that because they've consistently been in the playoffs. And I think it's coming back to bite them and show that its head that, they haven't been able to get the right picks with the later first round picks, and they're not getting high end talent out of it.
But again, like if that happens, say the Bruins get first round picks, they tank for a few years. I don't want Sweeney at least a part of that. I really don't. I mean, he's had so many draft misses, and his talent evaluation is not good at all. I mean, people will probably listen to this and say, "Oh, do you think you could do a better job?" Yeah. I mean, I probably wouldn't get the analyst to at least laugh at my pick or say who. I mean, Matt Barzal. I mean, guys like that. Guys that you would think would be picked at the spots and not completely reach. I mean, I don't trust Sweeney to not reach, even if we have a top 5 pick.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had Lysell fall on his lap last year.
He really did.
That was extremely lucky that Lysell dropped as far as he did. Because again, I forget my rankings exactly from last year, but I think I had Lysell. I know he was in the top 15. I think I had him like 12th or something like that. Like he was a guy that was supposed to be off the board long before Boston was picking, and the fact that he just kept dropping back there, I think that's Bruins were very fortunate to have that happen, and Sweeney had that fall right into his lap. I think overall his drafting has not been great.
And truthfully, I think he had McAvoy fall into his lap as well. I mean, he's right next door over on Commonwealth Ave at the time, and Charlie McAvoy fell into Don Sweeney's let's just say, North American drafting philosophy. So, I mean, if he missed on McAvoy, like that would have been how could he have done that? But he didn't.
Yeah,
But I think it was because McAvoy was literally in his backyard.
yeah. Um, we'll see. We'll see what the future holds with this team after this season, which we don't even know. Maybe Bruins could still win 6-7 and keep rolling here, but I don't have a lot of high hopes going into Carolina based on everything that I've seen from them in Carolina this year. I mean, I
No,
just don't see, especially in this series, we haven't seen a good performance on the road yet.
no, and like you said, there hasn't even been like an inkling of good things on the road. It's
Yeah.
been completely flat, and maybe they do, show up in Game 7 if we get there and pull it out. Maybe they pull it out. Maybe they go
I
on in the
hope
next
they
round.
do. I mean, we're
I
here
do too.
rooting for the
Yeah,
Bruins, hoping that they
absolutely.
do, but I just haven't seen it yet. I do think they can win Game 6. I think based on the trend of this series, I think they probably do win Game 6. I think that
Yeah.
home team trend is going to continue. I'm certainly really hoping that they win Game 6, but I'm very nervous about a Game 7 being back in Carolina because I just don't see it from Boston where they played well there.
As a hockey fan, it will be an exciting Game 7, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
As a Bruins fan, it's very nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It's very nerve-wracking. But no, yeah, but we've just seen this movie so many times from the Bruins.
Yeah.
That's why we're so pessimistic. We love the Bruins. I know it sounds like we're rooting against them, but we've just seen this happen so many times.
Oh, yeah. Lightning in 2018, Lightning again in 2020, Islanders last year. 2019 was the obvious one where they were actually able to
Yeah,
make it. Even that, they couldn't finish it off. They had a Game 7 on home ice, and they couldn't finish it
they
off.
stunk that game.
Yeah, it was not even a good performance. I mean, it seems like the same thing with this team every year. Like, they're a good hockey team, they're a playoff level team, but they're not able to they're not elite. They're good, but they're not elite, and they're not able to take it all the way and really finish it off in the playoffs. And recently, it's been kind of earlier exits in the playoffs, and unfortunately, they're on the brink of that happening again this year.
And if Carolina advances, I'll be rooting for them. I love to watch. I honestly love to watch them play hockey. I really do. When you look at their speed, and then you look at how much finesse they have. Sure, they play a more pretty boy game of hockey, but they are fun to watch. I mean, I gotta give props where it's due. They are
Mm-hmm.
fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I picked in my predictions this year. I picked them to go to the finals. I have them in Colorado in
Ooh,
the finals.
okay.
Um, and they're certainly a very good team. It would not surprise me if they're able to make it that far. But they gotta close out this series first, though, and it's not over yet. But they do have the Bruins on the brink of elimination. Carolina's one win away from advancing. And Boston, I mean, if you're the Bruins here, you cannot even be thinking about a Game 7. Right? All of your focus, all of your attention, you have to take this one game at a time, has to be on just getting the job done in Game 6, winning Game 6, and at least even getting it to a game number 7. But, obviously it's a do or die game coming up on Thursday night, and we'll see what the Bruins are able to do. But, again, I think the home team trend continues in this series. Unfortunately, that favors Carolina when you get to game number 7.
And if you're the Bruins, score the first goal in both games. If you want to win, at least score the first goal, especially in Game 7 when you're on the road. Because if Carolina gets any momentum in Game 7, if it goes that far on the road,
Yep.
then you're done. Then you're done.
Yeah,
I
first
mean,
goal is going to be massive. And Bruins haven't been able to do it in any game yet.
yeah.
Would love to see them get out to a lead because we just haven't seen
Oh,
it.
yeah. No, they haven't led at any point in this series, like in terms of starting the game. So,
Yeah, no, they've Carolina's 5 for 5 with first goals of the game so far. It's like,
that's
can we
crazy.
please start on time, guys, and
Yeah.
get the first goal?
Playing from behind in the playoffs never works.
It's a hard thing to do for sure. But
Indeed.
All right, man. Danny, it was awesome to have you once again for this episode of Black and Gold Weekly. We'll see what the Bruins can do in Game 6 and potentially Game 7 if there needs to be one, but very roller coaster series so far with the home teams taking all of the wins and playing the home teams are deserving all of the wins, outplaying their opponents in every one so far. But Carolina's got that 3-2 series lead. We'll see what happens in Boston on Thursday night with game number 6. Danny, it was great to have you. As always, thanks for coming on and talking some Bruins hockey.
Absolutely. I can't wait to watch some more hockey, and hopefully it goes in our favor.
Absolutely. So that's going to bring us here to the end of episode 66, guys. Once again, a big thank you to Mark Allred and the entire team at Black and Gold Productions. This show would not be happening without them, and we can't thank them enough for all of their support. Also, don't forget about the links down in the description of the video, whether it's Boston Bruins apparel and NHL apparel from any team or NCAA college apparel. It's all there for you guys with those 3 links, and I would greatly appreciate the help if you're in the market for any of those things to check those out. That's going to do it here for episode 66. Bruins, very tight playoff series with the Carolina Hurricanes right now on the brink of elimination, down 3-2, heading into a must-win game number 6 on home ice. Go Bruins. Let's hope they can pull it off. But it's going to be a tough one. There's no doubt about it. And it's playoff hockey, edge of your seat, and very, very stressful and nerve-wracking as a Bruins fan.
Absolutely.
No question about that. So thank you guys all so much for watching. We'll be talking to you soon, hopefully, with some good news. But we'll see how these next couple of games go. Thank you guys again so much for watching. See you guys next time.